So as of February 18th, alcohol sales at both installations will be limited between 2,200 and 1,000. There will be no sales, so you can purchase alcohol of all types between 1,000 and 2,200. At the same time, AAFES came back, or shortly thereafter, and said, in order to support that on Conn, we're going to have to limit the 24-hour sale time, and we're going to have to close between midnight and 05 on most days, and then you can see the other days. And I said, if you can't support it through sales, and I understand your business, appreciate your support. One of the questions that came up from the community was, where do I go? It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Where do I go when I need my Ben & Jerry's fix? Where do I go for gas? And then where do I go if I need medicine at night or over-the-counter stuff? So let me answer the Ben & Jerry's question first, because it's my favorite. Because I love a big Ben & Jerry's fan. Is that really, you can go to an Esso station that is open 24 hours, and while they don't have Ben & Jerry's, they have a thing called a Magnum bar, and they're really good. So that's one. Two, on the medicine side, anybody ever used a German 24-hour pharmacy off post? If you have used one, raise your hand. Anybody did not know that they existed? Okay, so here's the good news. By German law, and maybe even European Union-wide, and I know I've used one for somebody in here, is that the pharmacies are required to have a 24-hour access within some 20-kilometer radius. So the bottom line is, in the city of Schweinfurt, there's always one of the German apothekas, or pharmacies, that is always open. And it's lit, and it rotates. It's like being an on-call pharmacy. And we have it listed on teamschweinfurt.com. But the important piece is that there is a way to get it, and it's very user-friendly, and they're there, and they can work through the English issue very easily. And I went to emergency room in Leopoldina with the patient in hand at some crazy hour of the night, and got great service. So that. And they do over-the-counter stuff. So, what was last? Oh, gasoline. So there's still 2 Esso stations in town that are open. If any of you drive a diesel vehicle, you know you had to go there anyway. But they're also open 24 hours. So there are other alternatives. So that addresses that piece. And I'll talk more a little bit about the alcohol policy and why it changed. We'll be here to the end. One of the other questions that came up from the community, rumor mill has it that the Pxtra is closing down. If you see a blue sticker on the Pxtra, that means they're not going to carry it anymore. Anybody see that or hear that? It's a new one? Yeah? Okay, it's out there. There is some truth to that. By talking to Bill, is that the Pxtra collapse is probably not going to happen until summer, but they're working inventory now. They have to. I mean, all good store managers work their inventory. AAFES has already ordered a full spring line of the soft lines of their clothing, just what they ordered last year. First modification will be probably what's in the fall, winter for next year. Is that right, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Be modified to what the community size is. The key that both Colonel Hanna, who's the AAFES Europe director, and Bill and the general manager, Mike Lanham, have emphasized is everything that's in the AAFES system is available to us here. Use the special order system, and you can get it within a couple of days, and that's that note up on the slide about the shuttle system. So Pxtra will collapse into the main store sometime. We'll let you know 120 days out. It's not happening in the next 120 days. They are working to figure out, they have plans of how they can reduce the footprint. But one of the things that Bill has done, he just took me through the other day in his office, is he said, this is how we plan on making it not feel like we're emptying out. And how they plan to creatively use the shelf space. So you will see things consolidated in the main store. So, next slide. All right. So anybody have a rumor or question they'd like to address at this point? Okay, Barb, give me one.
All right. Well, the first one is about the AAFES Shoppette, which you've just addressed. Are people from leased housing moving on post is another one.
Let me go back to, I'll answer both of them.
All right.
So back to, why limit the alcohol sale hours? So there are a couple things that we know. We've been looking at our very high-risk behavior and alcohol-related incidents over a long time, from before I got here. To take a quote from the Chief of Behavioral Health here, Dr. Curley, he said and he's been around a while, he said there's something about alcohol abuse in Schweinfurt that I just don't get. And he used another quote of his, is that when it comes to suicide-related events, alcohol is to suicide as what gasoline is to a spark. So if suicide is at the very high end of destructive behavior, catastrophic behavior, sexual assaults are right underneath there. DUIs are probably down at the next level. And then all other sorts of related events. What we very clearly know, and the commands know, and we review it. A little harder to see in Schweinfurt because we have 6 different brigades represented, but we see it, we talk about it, is that alcohol abuse is higher than normal in Usher. In Schweinfurt. So how do we change that? Well, there are a couple of ways to do it. And if you haven't noticed, there have been about 4 things we've been trying to do over time. The first is just give a clear message of what right behavior looks like. So Schweinfurt 1, 2, 3 is part of that. It's not all of it. Right behavior is having a plan. Right behavior is sticking to your plan. Right behavior is having someone that doesn't need a driver, taxi money, and units. All those things that have worked and do work continue to be re-emphasized, and that's important. Somebody told us that you cannot, if you stop emphasizing that, just because they're there and you stop emphasizing it, you're missing. So just know that whole what we should do continues, has been, continues to be a major emphasis. Another area that has to do with command policy in the barracks in particular, and in the housing area when it comes to the garrison. So command policy includes quiet hours and enforcing quiet hours in the housing areas. In the barracks, it has to do with CQs, staff duty officers, alcohol policies by command in the barracks and enforcing those. And there's been a great effort across the board by the commands to do that over the last year. Another area has to do with really working with our ASAP team and our medical providers, and to make sure that as gaps develop with a person who's being treated for a variety of issues, that they get the care that they need. And as you know, one of the real challenges is getting somebody who really needs care to get care. But that's been the third area that we've worked. The fourth area, and by the way, we didn't pick those out of the thin air. We commissioned, I directed the 15-6 about a year ago to look at this. And one of the things we learned is there are about 4 things the community needs to do. And we've done 3 of them. What's the 4th thing? They say you have to focus, limit, keyword here, focus the access to the drug, in this case, alcohol. Because if you can focus it, then you can see it. And what we're finding is there was a wide open access point we could not see coming out of the Conn Shoppettes. We could trace it, we knew it. It was we called it a reload point for middle of the night, wide open, hard alcohol, entering especially our barracks, but not only our barracks, but also our housing areas. It was the open, we call it an open flank, exposed flank. It was risk. And so we appreciate AAFES working with us to close that out. So what does that allow things to happen? Well, one of the things we know is that they can't reload there and they can't reload off post because you can't get hard liquor in a German SO station after midnight or after 10. The 10 to 10 has a reason to it. You can't get beer after midnight. So just, if you could, as you feel led or not, just explain the reason that there's a 4-fold approach to working with our community, of how to help our community through some really tough times during real high stress events. Okay, closure, change, all those things that people tend to go to things that can help them. So let me go to the next one. So talking to some key leadership in the community, one of the things as we move to closure, was that we wanted to maintain the strength of the community, of being together, and the access to all of, really all of the agencies, all of the programs that we have. So one of the things that we have, I have in my office is a map that Robin's team has done of where we all live. And we have some families living way out there, well over 45 minutes to an hour out. And so, you know, sometimes if you live close, you think you're the farthest person out. But they're all over the place. So one of the things we have noticed is Askren Manor is starting to empty. And you just noticed it. And about 1 in 7, soon to be 1 in 6 units is vacant right now. So we don't have any parking problems. But what we do have is we have a real open potential to rebuild and sustain community for the next year if we work aggressively between now and, say, summertime to get people in who will be here through summer of 14, get them on post. There are a lot of people in private rentals that serve and move on. So here's what we're doing. We have to consolidate leased housing. We currently have 500, so to give you a feel, we have about 760 units, 770 units between Askren and Yorktown. Army Family Housing, bought, paid for, paying the utilities, it is sunk money. Oh, by the way, it's close to everything. To include what the Germans offer. Then we have leased housing that we've paid for that is also sunk money. And we have many of those that are scattered throughout. There are about 500, 550 total units. In order to take care of both the people and the money, we need to bring about 250 of those offline next year. About 250 will go all the way to closure. We have some cases where there are 6 leased housing units, you know, they come in clusters. So there's clusters of 6, clusters of 10. Where there's 1 family left, and there's 6 others there. Only Army family there. Frankly, we need to move. So we're asking them if they want to move. So come now, come on to Askren. You get your pick right now, and we'll move you, and we'll pay you DLA. So pick the time, pick the place, schedule you, we'll bring you on. So that's still going, and what I've asked housing team to do is to not blast, email anybody, but approach families one-on-one. Okay, I recognize there's some people who don't want to move, they like exactly where they're at. We'll work with them as much as we can, but there are about half of the units need to come offline. And there's a sequence, and we have a plan, and I get briefed on it this week on the specific. They've gone back one iteration. Which homes and which families by name that we've got to talk to. So the priority is to consolidate leased housing onto Askren and Yorktown, and oh, by the way, into the leased housing that will stay all the way to the end. And we'll clearly pay for that. After we've done that, there will still be some homes left open. And so then we want to open it up to private rental folks who want to keep closer. And so our goal is, again, let's bring you in closer, because we think the quality of life in the community will be stronger if we bring you in. I say private rental, though, is really only by choice. We're not going to, we're not going to force anybody to come off a private rental. My intent is not to force anybody coming off a leased housing to do anything. I want to make it workable and agreeable on their timeline. But I think realistically, they have to be moved by July to get a full year into the building. And we can, oh, by the way, for us, it's neat. Somebody said, well, that costs a lot of money to move somebody. Absolutely it does. But it costs even more to leave them in where they're at. For all kinds of reasons. It costs more for them, it costs more for us. So I hopefully that laid some. Any questions on the approach? So my goal, and I haven't told Robin this, my goal is to have those notifications and contacts made by the middle of March to everybody. Yeah, go ahead. No, you're up.
Sir, I'm not quite sure how housing works, but as far as officers, they are supposed to live off post, correct?
They normally do.
Will they be given the option to move on post?
Yes, they are. Some of them already have. We have some. So one of the things we received in a closure order from MCOM Europe was the authority to mix housing by rank. So we already have some officers that moved on post, mostly company grade, who live or in the stairwells. And again, our goal is, A, they want to, B, it's very efficient for them, makes sense. So that is an option. So senior non-commissioned, so the normal limits, it's a great question, the normal limits of who can move and be on post are really, have been changed, and it's open to anybody. It's uniformed. Barb, one more.
Will the garrison still host events
As
as we close?
we close, we host events.
Community events?
Yeah, so remember, one of the things that I think I'd be assured that my favorite book on my professional reading list is Stone Soup. Everybody remember that childhood book, Stone Soup? If you don't, I recommend it. You can find the online version. They actually read it to you. I found it. But the answer is yes. Our ability to do that, let me just, our ability to do that due to funding may be limited to some degree. What I say is we're only limited by our creativity, clearly inside the bounds of what the law will allow us to do. So, for example, one of the things we're still going to do in May is we're still going to have the community celebration right out here. It's a very, very low-cost event with good weather and everybody coming out and having a good time and firing up the grills. It's a great kickoff to summer. So that's one of the areas that we're going to have a community event. The high school graduation, I would argue, is a community event. We're still going to have 4th of July. It might look a little different. One of the courses of action that we'll approve before we go, but we have input on, is we may host it on Askren. So one of the concerns we have is, with about half the population, is that if we hold it at Yorktown, it's going to feel really empty. So if we hold it on Askren, some of it is feeling full. Do we hold it there? A little bit easier for those with kids. So, but there will be some form of 4th of July. And we may also point people to other communities that are having, if you really want the big 4th of July experience, we may point you there. I don't know, if Ramside's having a air show on the 4th of July. Can't imagine that happening this year, but it just might. Is that we'll let you know where other places to go for the 4th are. We're still going to plan on having Splash Bash at the end of the summer. What's that? Yep, so Michael Payne, Mr. Kinderfest will be, so Month of Military Child is still in April. We're still going to recognize it. We still have, volunteer corps continues. We'll recognize those folks and still need them, especially as we close. So our ability to do community-related events, relatively, a lot of them are just about setting the time, setting the date, and inviting people. Not all of them. Some cost money, but a lot of them don't. And we'll continue to focus on what we can do with what we have. Starting the fire, putting a big kettle on it, putting a couple of rocks and starting to stir it up. And if you know the story, it's the kids who get it going. They say, what are you doing? They say, making soldiers do, we're making stone soup. They say, what's the stone soup? They say, whatever you can bring. They go home. Just like kids do. And they bring stuff, and all of a sudden the parents start coming, the moms in particular, and the dads. The dads bring they start bringing the meat and the other things, and it's amazing what happens. The thing I love about that story isn't how good the soup is. I think it's pretty amazing to me, especially for a community that knows what's going on about transition and soldier life, is that the soldiers, while they're in that community, are connected not only to each other, but the community connects, and trust is built. And then the next day, the soldiers get up, they farewell, and soldiers do what soldiers do, and they move on down the road. But that community is left with a very, very good feeling. And so they moved from a period of distrust and not having enough, because that community was starving before the soldiers entered. And they moved to knowing they had more than they had, and they built trust, and they moved on. That's sort of, in a nutshell, that's sort of my hope and goal for Schweinfurt. So, yes, we will have community events. And before I leave this spring, we'll have laid out, certainly through the new year, what we think the community events ought to be. And we may talk to some of those in May. But we really appreciate everybody's continued support and feedback. Know that we need it. The last thing I would ask as we go, I talked to our team, the garrison team, and all hands this Thursday. And As you can imagine, whether they're German, so we have three categories of employees, or they fall into three different types. So we have local national, which is the vast majority of our workforce. We have NAF employees that work for DFW New York. And we have AF, which are appropriated funds that basically work everywhere else, like Jen Chestnut, Tommy Harrison. Their futures are very different depending on which category they fall into. And just know that one of our jobs that should be transparent to you is how we help our team transition in their professions and their lives. So all I'd ask you to do is be aware of that in two areas. One is, if you get really good customer service, please let them know, and please let us know so we can reinforce it. Our team is under a lot of their own stress, but I'll tell you, they are fired up to come here every day to be a part of Team Schweinfurt. They really are. I tell every one of my employees who says, hey, sir, I found a job and fill in the blank, say, Godspeed, thanks for your great service here. I help give them references so they can find good work, which means you're going to lose them earlier. But I tell every one of them is, if it's working right now well in Schweinfurt for you, we'd love to have you stay. There's plenty to do and great people to take care of. So again, I just want you to know we're managing the tension of helping our own force realistically address their future. At the same time, providing services to our team. We're not rushing anybody out of here. In fact, we're asking them if they would be willing to stay a little longer. Some of them are having opportunities. I'll tell you, some of them are amazing. They have opportunities to go, and they have said, it's not the ideal one, and I'd rather stay here and not take the guaranteed job and fill in the blank to stay here another year, and I'm confident I'll find a job somewhere else. You don't know who those people are. I don't know who all of them are. But I just tell you, as we go forward, I would appreciate the feedback they have. And if you're having bad customer service, you don't deserve any of it. You gotta let us know that too. Because it may be an indicator that something larger is going on. And just on the leadership side, we need that feedback. So just realize we still have about 350, if you add in MedAC and MedTac, and DECA, and AAFES and DIA, we probably have about 650 people here whose futures are not as clear. If you wear this uniform, you know we're going to get orders somewhere. It is not the same with the Department of the Army civilian. It's not the same. They're not necessarily guaranteed replacement. Okay? So, that's all I have. Thanks. We'll hang around, and really appreciate your time and energy. And if you have any other questions, please let us know. It's great being part of the community with you.